Vanessa Healey. I've worked at Recipient Nurseries in Dunedin for just over 3 years, and I studied horticulture at Otago Polytech for 1 year before that. I grow and sell New Zealand native plants. My main interest is New Zealand native plants, but I'm very keen to learn a lot more about exotic plants that are grown in New Zealand gardens. Today I am interviewing Denis Hughes from Blue Mountain Nurseries in Tapanui. Denis's father started the nursery, and Denis always had an enthusiastic interest in plants and the environment as he was growing up. His first word was nomakaris,
that's right.
which is a Himalayan plant. Denis's father started market gardening in 1931, where Blue Mountain Nurseries is now. The nursery then got into floristry for funerals, so they had to start growing the plants for the flowers. Very quickly became a retail and wholesale nursery after that. Denis grows anything hardy and suitable for the climate, and he is well known for growing rhododendrons, and he prefers to grow trees and shrubs. My subject today is selecting and marketing new cultivars. So Denis, you are well known for selecting and growing great new cultivars. What criteria do you use when selecting a new cultivar?
Well, I suppose the first one you've got to have is something different.
Something different?
It's got to be different from quite a distance away. So if it's not obviously different at, we'll say, 6 metres away, then there's no point in selecting that one.
Yeah. Okay. And what are some of your favourite cultivars?
Oh, I find that very hard to answer. My wife Margaret used to say that I was a plantaholic, so I don't stay in any one narrow group of plants. Okay. So I don't stick entirely to rhododendrons and azaleas.
Yep.
I can have a go at natives, for example.
Yep.
I love the kowais in particular,
okay,
and national flower. And so I've collected them from all over the country.
Yep.
There are a lot of helpful people
yep,
up and down the country. They've sent me material, and I've collected it myself as well. And I've also got a lot of kowai species from overseas, South America in particular.
Okay.
And but the bellbirds and tuis and so on don't make any difference. They're quite happy to select the nectar from either flower.
Yeah. Yeah, and have you combined the overseas kowhai? Have you breeded them with the New Zealand kowhai?
Yes, I have inadvertently.
Yeah.
And from a gardener's point of view, I think that's good.
Yeah.
But from an ecological point of view, it could be a serious disaster.
Yeah.
So we've got to be careful in that.
Yeah.
But they're here now, and they've been here for a long time.
Yeah.
It's a matter of being very careful not to use the South American ones when we're doing ecological plantings.
Yeah.
And some of them are so similar, it's you've got to be very careful.
Yeah. Okay. And what are the most popular ones that you sell?
I think the most popular plants that we sell are really driven by fashion.
Fashion. Okay.
And rhododendrons, probably 10 years ago, were extremely fashionable plant, and certainly they've sort of dropped from fashion now, but they're still an extremely good plant for the southern end of New Zealand.
Yeah.
And very colourful and associate very well with our native plants in our gardens.
Yeah, they do.
Give us our colour. Excuse me.
How do you then propagate your new selections?
Well, usually I grow quite a large number to begin with, to select from, and then when I've got the one that I think is the best thing since sliced bread, then I test propagate it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you've got the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
If it can't be propagated, it's an absolute dog.
Yeah.
That happened to me with an azalea early on. I had a lovely double pink azalea, and it was bigger than anything else, quite distinct from anything else. Put in 100 cuttings, you'll end up with 2 or 3 plants. Is not a nurseryman's delights at all.
It's a bit depressing.
It's very depressing. And it took me another decade before I actually replaced it with one that does propagate very well.
Yeah. Okay, so do you try all of them from cuttings first, or seed, or, well, I suppose in your cultivars you have to do it from cuttings, but not seed?
Yes, you've got to asexually propagate a good form, otherwise if you do it from seed there's too much variation.
Yeah.
And you know, with trees and shrubs, if you're going to do it from seed, there's too many years would go by before you could actually raise them from seed accurately. So yes, cuttings are the cheapest way, so cuttings is what we aim at. Grafting if we have to, but no, cuttings is where we go for.
Yep. Okay.
So that's this year's growth. This is last year's growth, as you can see by the brown on it. So we only want this year's growth, which is that. Throw that away. We basically make it into a cutting, this one. So we take off all the leaves bar 3. And then when we've only got 3 left, I usually do this with the knife. It can easily be done with the... So there we are.
Yep.
It's basically a cutting.
And that's the
Cunningham's White, which is going to be the rootstock.
Yep.
This one's very easy to grow, very easy to root, and so that's why we're using it. Now, we don't want this to grow, so when we normally make a cutting, we would just cut it just below a bud, like that, nice and clean, and that's our cutting made when we've wounded it and we put a hormone on it. So that's basically it.
Yep.
I've intentionally taken one bud off, and I don't want this bud on there, so I'm going to take that off. And then I've got to look for a site to put my scion on, so I'm going to cut down here because it's taking another bud off. And I've got to go down to the cambium layer, and that is possibly not deep enough. You only want to make one cut, because if you do 2 cuts like I'm doing just now, you usually make a mess of it. And then you want a similar sized one scion. The scion here is of Rhododendron Eucosimanum FCC, and a very popular one, and it's certainly worthwhile grafting it. So we do an angle cut right at the bottom, and then on the side that's going to go next to the rootstock we take a sliver off, exposing the cambium layer again, hopefully a similar size to this. Now you can see why we put the So now we tie it up with a rubber budding strip, which is lucky I didn't check on those to see they're at the hand, but they are. So we just put that on there like that to hold the end of it, round through here and then over the top so it holds itself. Now I can let it go and just keep on winding it up, and pay a particular attention to the bottom. Catch the bottom, then over the top of my nail, and then underneath, and that locks it, and then just slide it over the top. Hopefully I did that slowly enough.
Yep. What are some of your harder to grow plants that you've had trouble with down here?
Well, the conifers, you know, we had to graft quite a lot of those. You know, named forms of cedars and spruce and things like that. Aren't that, well, when you grow them for the first time, or graft them for the first time, they're not that easy to do.
Okay.
I remember my first blue spruces were probably only about 4 or 5% take, but after a number of years we got that up to about 80–90%.
Yeah.
So it's not just the carpentry of the graft, it's the environment you put it in, and yeah, it's very important. You got to read your plants. You got to listen to them, or in other words, you do it all with your eyes. I know.
Yeah.
I talk about talking to plants and listening to plants, but you do it all that with your eyes. To watch what they're doing. They'll tell you whether they like what you're doing to them or not. by how they grow,
Yeah.
what they do. So that's really your number one thing for plants.
Yeah. It's just listening and looking at them and
Mm.
yep. Cool. So how do you go about marketing your new cultivar plants?
Well, there's two ways of doing it. One is you've got heaps of money and you throw that at it in the marketing process, whether it be TV is probably your dearest one and the quickest one to get something out into the marketplace. The written word is probably the way most of us do it, with pretty pictures, obviously. Pictures worth 1,000 words, they say, and it certainly works. So if you can get it out there that way, that's the way to do it. I've always gone in the quiet way. I've never really gone in with a big marketing budget or anything like that. I've always just put it out there and let people have a go, and if they like it, they'll go for it, and the garden writers will pick up on it, and your marketing's done for you.
Yep.
But that takes time. Cornish Greenvale has been very much like that. That's every year I see it. It's probably been in the marketplace now for 7 or 8 years or more, and some of our early trees are now starting to look something.
Yep.
And I'm finding people are really loving what they see.
Yeah.
And down in the south here, this last flowering season for dogwood was fantastic.
Okay.
A lot of comment about Cornish Greenvale.
Yeah.
Now.
What limitations do you have working from a rural township in New Zealand?
Limitations probably is the cost of transport. It's never been a limitation people-wise. I mean, take yourself, you've come to Tapanui today, all the way from Dunedin, and I've had people from, well, dare I say, all over the world.
All over the world,
So you do get good feedback. You know, I learn a lot from people.
Yeah.
And more questions, making me think about what I'm doing. So I'm learning too.
Oh, that's good. We're both learning today. Okay, well, how do you go about getting new customers? Do you just rely on your good name, or do you advertise?
We do the normal advertising that everybody does, but certainly our best advertising is the word of mouth.
Word of mouth, yeah.
Always has been, and I suspect always will.
Yeah. Okay. And how far away where's the furthest place you've sent your plants?
Oh, London, I suppose.
London?
Yeah, it's right on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
We don't aim at export.
No.
But if people find a plant they want,
Yeah.
we certainly try to make it happen for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do exporting, but it's not our focus.
No.
The closer our customer is, the better.
Yeah. So do those types of people, like from London, do they just find you online and give you a ring to see if you've got the plant, or?
Yeah, they're enthusiasts generally, and Exbury Gardens in England is extremely well known worldwide for its rhododendrons and azaleas.
Yeah.
And so it was quite a surprise when the Rothschild family became keen to have a look at our azaleas.
That's really
so
cool.
It was real cool
Yeah.
to show them around years ago.
Yeah.
And to have our plants, our New Zealand raised azaleas growing in your garden, of course, is
that's
really
really cool.
something I really...
That's something to boast about, definitely.
Well, I boast about it, yes,
Yes,
but I just
absolutely.
really enjoy the thought that they're there.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. So you've been in business a long time. What are some of the significant changes in the industry that you have seen?
Oh my goodness. Well, I can still remember as a student going to a pot plant nursery in Napier, Anderson's pot plant nursery in Napier, and just as a student watching a man there washing clay pots, and of course students have to ask questions, and we did ask the obvious, how long has he been washing clay pots? Well, it turned out he'd been doing it since he had left school, and at that stage it was about 30 or 40 years that he'd been washing clay pots at Anderson's pot plant nursery. So yeah, that was a bit mind-boggling for a student to pick up on.
Yeah.
All the plants at that stage were grown in the ground mainly, and all grown in a rather expensive way as pot plants and clay pots. And as a student, I can still remember my lecturer saying that we'd be growing plastic plants in plastic greenhouses. We haven't quite come there, but we've certainly got the plastic greenhouses.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably the computer or computer chip has changed the control of greenhouses. It's changed the office completely.
Yeah.
All the potting mixes in our pots were soil based to start with, and we very quickly nicknamed them the concrete mix, and because they lost their structure very quickly.
Yeah.
So with peat mixes or the UC mixes from California, they very quickly changed all that. And of course now bark mixes,
Yeah.
for environmentally friendly way of going has been a huge change going forward, I believe. It's a large number of changes,
Yeah.
and they're insidious, taking place all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
The environmentally, I mean, we'd throw all the chemicals we wanted to at problems,
Yeah.
and that was driven by chemical companies. Nowadays, of course, we try to do it the soft way,
Yeah.
and have Mother Nature look after it for us.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think could change in the future for nurserymen?
We're certainly becoming much more ecologically friendly as an industry, and I think we've got to continue down that road.
Yeah.
Growing plants that are as near a weed as possible but aren't a weed has a lot fewer inputs and much more suited to your area. I'm not necessarily talking about exotics when I'm talking about weeds. I'm talking about natives as well.
Yep.
So your local natives are quite important.
Yeah.
Because they suit the climate.
Yeah.
The Auckland natives down here are often not as good as they could be.
No.
Although it's quite interesting in the kowais. I had kowais from all over the country when we had our winter of '96.
Yeah.
And even the ones that were local died. And dare I say, I had two Auckland kowais that survived, and I didn't have any local ones, so I didn't learn anything about the hardiness of kowais.
No. Oh, that's unusual.
It was a bit of a disappointment, to be honest.
Yeah, I bet it was. Cool. And finally, what advice would you give new horticulturalists to get ahead in the industry?
Well, I think it's quite important to study plants. All our energy, food, everything comes from comes from plants. Why aren't we studying them more than we are? So I think it's a very good industry to get into. I know it's not chic to be doing that at the moment, but I think it's the way forward.
Yeah.
And you always want to go into an industry that's not, how would I say, popular at the time, and because you haven't got as much competition in it.
Yep.
And I think you're more likely to get a better go at it for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do something that you have a passion for.
Yep.
I think that's the number one thing to do in life.